The election of Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States has created a difficult geopolitical and economic environment for Mexico's new president, Claudia Sheinbaum, the country's first female head of state. While she inherits a nation with massive potential for progress and growth, she also faces a complex web of challenges related to its relationship to the United States. These issues encompass migration, trade, security, and regional diplomacy, all of which could shape Mexico's future under her leadership. Donald Trump's campaign focused heavily on two key issues: curbing illegal immigration and bringing jobs back to America. These priorities directly target Mexico, making bilateral relations highly sensitive. Trump has already criticized Mexico for allowing migrants to cross into the United States and blamed the country for the influx of illegal substances into American communities. His proposed policies will certainly impact Mexico's economy and its political stability, putting Sheinbaum in a difficult position. Starting with the issue of migration. Trump has emphasized closing the U.S.-Mexico border to stop migration through Mexico. Reports suggest that Trump has stated Sheinbaum agreed to measures that would restrict migration across Mexico and into the United States. Sheinbaum, however, has denied this claim, though she faces growing pressure to control migratory flows. She has defended the role of Mexican authorities, pointing to the reduction of such flows in recent years. Trump has been adamant in his desire to implement mass deportations, including non-Mexican nationals. Sheinbaum has opposed receiving deportees who are not Mexican, insisting they should be repatriated to their countries of origin. This will most likely be a flashpoint between the two administrations. Trade relations between Mexico and the United States are another major area of concern. The U.S. is Mexico's largest trading partner, and tariffs on Mexican goods could severely hurt the nation's economy. Trump has already signaled intentions to impose a 25% tariff on goods coming from Mexico, especially on the Mexican auto industry, which is critical to the country's economic growth. Such measures would disrupt supply chains and reduce foreign investment in the sector. Mexico's economy heavily depends on its exports to the United States, and a tariff war could destabilize industries that employ millions of Mexicans. Furthermore, Mexico's role as a top trading partner with the U.S. means that any restrictions would not only harm Mexico, but also have adverse effects on American consumers and industries. But this is not the first time that President Trump threatens tariffs on Mexico. Last time he did this, during his first administration, it all ended with a renegotiated North American free trade deal. Many currently believe that something similar will happen this time, but some analysts think that this second Trump presidency will not be the same as the first one. In an article in the Financial Times, Michael Stott makes his case as to why Mexico should be ready for a bumpy ride this time. He explains that while a similar scenario under Trump's first administration ended in negotiations and minimal disruption, the current situation is riskier for Mexico due to several factors. He writes that Trump's motivations have shifted. In 2018, he focused on trade fairness, whereas now, he frames tariffs as necessary to stop drug smuggling and illegal migration. To make matters even worse, Canada, once a steadfast ally under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, appears willing to abandon Mexico if necessary, as indicated by Justin Trudeau's remarks when he publicly said, quote, "Ideally, the three legs of the North American market would be preserved. But, pending decisions and choices that Mexico has made, we may have to look at other options." Unquote. Stott continues to write that Mexico's new president faces tougher circumstances compared to her predecessor, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. The journalist stated that Sheinbaum's initial response to Trump's rhetoric was silence followed by indirect criticism, which lacked diplomatic finesse. Mexico's economic vulnerabilities complicate the situation. With slower growth, higher debt, and weakened security policies, the country is less equipped to withstand trade disruptions. Sheinbaum's agenda, including cuts to security budgets and controversial institutional reforms, risks further alienating U.S. policymakers and investors. Critics argue that her government's approach to security and U.S. cooperation lacks urgency, raising concerns about deteriorating relations. If negotiations fail and tariffs are imposed, the repercussions for Mexico's economy could be severe, risking its tariff-free access under USMCA. Meanwhile, China has expressed interest in strengthening ties with Mexico, signaling potential geopolitical shifts if U.S.-Mexico relations worsen. The stakes are high for the Mexican president as she navigates this complex challenge. One thing is to negotiate in search of balanced trade, and a very different one is to negotiate terms of trade as a condition for things that can range from migration to the control of illegal substances. One of Trump's most pointed accusations against Mexico involves the smuggling of synthetic hallucinogens into the United States. Trump has suggested that Mexico's inability to control this issue contributes to America's opioid crisis. Sheinbaum's administration has refuted these claims and highlighted the importance of U.S.-Mexico cooperation in addressing substance trafficking. However, this disagreement puts additional strain on diplomatic relations. Sheinbaum has also drawn attention to the role of weapons smuggled from the United States into Mexico as a driving force behind the country's violence. She has urged the U.S. to take responsibility for curbing arms trafficking, which fuels organized crime. Addressing these issues will require coordinated efforts. Moreover, Mexico's relationship with Cuba also complicates its diplomatic standing with the United States. Under López Obrador, Mexico extended support to Cuba, providing financial assistance and maintaining strong bilateral ties. Trump's administration has historically taken a harsh stance toward Cuba, and Mexico's generosity toward the island nation could irritate the United States further. Mexico has become Cuba's primary supporter in light of Venezuela's economic collapse. Under former President Andrés Manuel López Obrador and now President Claudia Sheinbaum, Mexico has provided substantial aid to Cuba, including millions of barrels of oil, food, and other resources. This support for Cuba's communist government has been open and kind of defiant. Despite Cuba's long history of political repression, economic failure, and lack of free elections for more than 70 years. In 2023, López Obrador sent a record 5.4 million barrels of oil worth $391 million to Cuba, and Sheinbaum has pledged even more, including 400,000 barrels of oil and 100 tons of meat. Critics argue that such aid props up a failed dictatorship and undermines the reality of the U.S. embargo on Cuba. If the purpose of the embargo is to put pressure on the Cuban regime and force it to allow democratic freedoms, then Mexico's generosity comes in conflict with such goals. Mexico's prioritization of Cuba extends to its diplomatic stance. It rejected participation in the 2022 Summit of the Americas because the U.S. excluded Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. In 2023, Mexico pressured the U.S. to engage with Cuba, tying migration cooperation to the resumption of talks with Havana. Meanwhile, Mexico faces its own crises, including escalating violence, rising crime, increasing deficits, and slow growth. Despite these domestic challenges, the government has made supporting Cuba a priority, drawing criticism for its alignment with a repressive regime rather than addressing its pressing internal issues. As Mexico's first female president, Sheinbaum's leadership style and policy decisions will be closely scrutinized. Her progressive agenda includes improving social programs, addressing inequality, and fostering innovation, but these goals require a certain degree of economic growth and social stability, and those elements may not be there in the event of a serious clash with her neighbor to the north. Her ability to manage these crises will define her presidency and determine Mexico's future trajectory. Sheinbaum's initial conversations with Trump have been described as cordial, with both leaders expressing interest in finding common ground. However, aligning their vastly different priorities remains uncertain. It's important to point to the fact that the business community has an enormous interest in investing in Mexico. If President Sheinbaum is able to avoid a trade war, many industries are poised to grow rapidly, including semiconductors. To learn about the projected growth of the semiconductors industry in Mexico and other Latin American countries in the coming years, check out this other video. This is Latinometry. Subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of our interesting videos about Latin America and the world. Please like and share this video, and thanks for watching.